You may think of them as slushies, Slurpees, or even snow cones, but to Omar Knedlik, it's the icy. Omar came home from World War II and opened up his first ice cream shop called Dairy Queen. His Dairy Queen was only missing one thing, the ever so popular in the 50s soda fountain. He improvised and served softly frozen bottles of pop to his customers who made this frozen treat so popular. He later teamed up with a company from Dallas to invent a machine called the Icy Machine, which you will probably see in your local convenience stores or 7-Elevens. You may be wondering, how does this man and his invention relate to me? Is it because I too love ices? No, not really. Is it because we have a Dairy Queen in our town? Nope, not within 50 miles. It's actually because me and this man were born and raised in the same town of Barnes, Kansas, just 100 years apart. Located on the central branch of the Union Pacific Railroad, Barnes was founded in 1876 by Henry Ober and his brother A.H. They opened up the first general store and moved in a post office that is still in the same spot today. They decided they needed to name this village that they lived in, and so they called it Barnes, after A.H. Barnes, the local railroad surveyor, who will later own the lumber yard and operate it. Fast forward to 100 years later, Barnes has 2 antique stores, a community-owned cafe, a couple small businesses, and a bunch of rundown houses. The post office, like I said, is in the same spot that it has always been in. It's only open a few hours a day, unlike other post offices, which are open all day. The school shut down in 1965 after a fire burnt down most of the school and left the gymnasium and the kitchen. This drove many families out of the area and was a huge blow to a small town with only 150 people in it. Everybody left to go find school for their children and to start a new life. 1 year prior, my dad and his family moved to Barnes from Marshall County to start a new life. They bought farmland and raised cattle and horses. While my grandpa was in the field farming, my grandma drove the school bus. After graduating in '76, my dad went off to trade school in Manhattan and came back a year later to open and operate Weaver Construction, which is still open 40 years later. I often wonder how my life would be if there were more opportunities and more people in this small town I call home. Barnes was a different place to live. Everyone knew everybody and everything, which was a good and a bad thing. I could count on one hand how many children my age were in town or near that I went to school with. This made you talk to all the older people or don't talk at all. I chose to talk, and now I feel more comfortable with older people than anybody else. I give credit to living in this small town. My hometown influenced me to try new things and to work harder. Because the town had few activities, you had to go out and find something to occupy yourself. This meant trying new things and being adventurous. I'm a very curious person, and the reason for this is because of where I was raised. It is always interesting to tell people about yourself and where you're from. I usually take the easy way out and say I live just north of Manhattan, about 45 miles, or south of the Nebraska border, right off 36. In a world that seems to be falling apart, I should be more grounded and proud of where I'm from. Most people don't get to experience a small town feeling. My feeling is special to me, even if the only thing that you find when you Google Barnes, Kansas is a man named Omar Knedlik and his icy invention. I know there's more to it than that. It is my home, and it is part of me.